Hey, everybody. Thanks very much for swinging by and checking out TLC Presents Todd-versations. He's here. You've asked for him. I got him. He's sitting next to me. Give it up from Whole Food Market. The one, the only, the pride of Boston, Erik Brown. Welcome, Erik.
How you doing out there? Thanks, Todd, for having me.
It's absolutely a pleasure. I got to tell you, you're very well requested. I know it took a lot of chasing you down to get you to pin yourself down for a little while to hang out with me. But
I'm a busy guy. I'm a busy guy. I got 3 little kids now. They keep me moving.
I know you got 3 little kids. I got all these, you've got groupies out here, man. You've got groupies. You've been around. You're a baller in this space, and you've done so many positive things. And that's one of the reasons I'm excited to have you here today, is to kind of talk about who you are, what's going on. I mean, we're going to cover everything from A to W. That's the way I'm looking at this today. So we should, I'm looking forward to this chat. I got a lot of questions to throw at you, and I'm excited that you're here. So I really do appreciate you taking the time. And hopefully it'll be painless. I'm going to make it painless for you.
Well, it always is. That's why I was, happy to come on. Is I've known you forever and good partner, and always just been great to just have a conversation with, whether it be about business or life or whatever. It's just good to catch up, and
I appreciate that.
Just my job. So
I appreciate that very, very much. And it'd be better if we were doing this on a GoPro on a golf course, but we'll do that on episode 2.
Exactly.
So to get started a little bit, just for the 3 people that don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about your trajectory with Whole Foods. You've been there quite a while, and you've got a big role. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing and that whole launch pad for yourself.
No, fair enough. Well, geez, I've been with Whole Foods for 30 years and counting. And, believe it or not, it was by chance that I sort of got a job at Whole Foods. And actually, it was bread and circus.
Right.
I grew up down the street from a bread and circus store. I think it was the 3rd or 4th store that had been opened at the time. And just, needed a part-time job. I was working for another retailer when I was going to school, and they were hiring for a little bit more money at the time. And back then it was like, okay, yeah, 50 cents an hour, 50 cents an hour. So it all worked out, and happened to just get hired in grocery of all places. Filling bulk bins. And if everybody remembers back in the day at the old natural food stores, there was a tremendous amount of bulk grains, whether it be oats or rices and so on and so forth. So filled those, and then it was kept my eye on the produce team that was next to me. And I was like, well, those guys seem to be having a lot more fun than me filling the bulk bins. So I was like, how do I get myself to go work with the produce guys? And they're like, yeah. We'll think about it. And then so on. And so just after time, I just, joined that team and worked on building that program with that store in particular. And then a couple years down the road, we had Bread and Circus had merged with Whole Foods.
Right.
And we were opening up a bunch of stores in the DC area. I moved down to DC and opened a bunch of stores, and kind of just kept moving around in that space, opening up stores, building programs, moved to New York, had worked on the Fresh Fields merger and integrated those stores back in the day, which I think was 96 or 97.
Mid 90s.
Yeah. Then moved back to Boston, from the Boston area originally.
You're more popular than Tom Brady in Boston. You're more popular than Tom Brady is in Boston. Let's just cut to the chase.
Well, I did not hide all my Patriot stuff for this video, but
it's not worth as much anymore.
It's not worth nearly as much. Not really worth much. So then I kind of, kept moving around in Whole Foods. We saw the Fresh and Wild store integration, which was our stores in London, helped support those. And then was like, well, maybe I'll head back to Maryland and oversee the DC and the team down there. And that was great. And then to today, so after a while about being in Maryland, I was like, I really want to go home. And then decided to do a couple different things. And then I think I got a call from Edmund, who we all know and
Edmund Lamacchia.
So much. He's like, why don't you come join the procurement team? And so here I am. So spent most of my career, at retail in the store, sort of building and supporting programs and helping define the retail standards for whole foods and produce, along with a lot of other great leaders, of course.
Sure.
But then decided, hey, maybe that is a spot for me, working on the wholesale side. And a couple of my colleagues at the time was like, well, that seems sort of smart, because that's what we always should have done. We should have always had an interest and exposure to the wholesale side. Being a retailer, you don't really know the other half of the business.
Right.
And now that I'm in this sort of wholesale side, the buy side and the supplier side, supporting our programs from the procurement end, should have done that a long time ago. Sort of because it brings it all together in a lot of ways. You kind of understand
for sure.
both angles. So now to today, sort of doing similar things, building a team, supporting our procurement process, and building out for the success of Whole Foods, and for our supply partners. I mean, to me, it's all about a relationship and building out that program together, because we can't do it alone. We have to do it with the likes of the support of our retail partners, as well as our suppliers, and that's really important. So,
well, in the space, in the organic produce space coming up, I mean, you guys were pivotally important about trying to get people wanting to be in your stores. I mean, that was you guys were the benchmark to get into, to try to get yourself to try to help a brand grow. I mean, the recognition of being in your stores got you recognition from other retailers. That's just the way it worked back when, right? And you guys are an instrumental part of uplifting and putting growers that we have today on the map, help them scale, help them, be more fiscally responsible, help them, guide them into that retail setting, which actually, in my opinion, I think you guys are absolutely pivotal when you take a look at where the produce space is today overall, as well as especially the organic produce space is today. I mean, everybody figured out how to copy you, in my opinion. And there's very few that were like you that led early on. I mean, there was a couple that, you guys would go side by side, but not a lot. Yeah. And so it's pretty impressive. So with that being said, though, tell me a little bit what you think, how retail compares today versus like 10 years ago, because it's definitely changed. I mean, what's your assessment of that from your perspective?
No, well, it seems to change a lot every year, Todd. I mean, but I think going back to one of the reasons why we were successful is we really owned the relationship, and that was really important. Like, hey, we want to go here. Can you go there with us? And we'll help support each other to get there.
Right.
And to me, that was really important. Like, and you honor your word. I mean, and you make it work. And we have supply partners that we've built and to today still have, that have managed through that with us the whole time. It's like, hey, I see this trend. Can you help us build out that supply side to get there?
Right.
And I think our supply partners really have helped us do that. And the relationship between the two of us, Whole Foods and supply partners, have been one of the most important parts of the program.
100% agree.
Yeah. I mean, but to answer your question, 10 years ago today, well, geez, it's like, if you blink and it's 10 years go by. So I'd have to reflect back a lot closer, but a lot more value added, a lot more ready to eat, ready to cook. And people expect things all the time. You expect to have, pick the item all year long. We're seeing the seasons blend in a little bit more because of just the evolution of products and programs. But to me, the biggest challenge, not the challenge, but the evolution or change has really been in just the value added space, like chopped kits,
all the convenience items.
Yeah, I mean, it's remarkable. I mean, we all did that years ago, right? We all had those. Hey, the next greatest thing is going to be chopped kits, right? And we gave it a good try, and it didn't work. And it's come back around now 10 or 15 years later and been widely successful. I think part of it is because the flavors are better, the mixes are better, and then there's the customers are looking to save time. And what's a better way to do it than have your salad all pre-prepared, and the price is right. I mean,
Yeah.
I can buy a good salad that I can feed my family for $3 or $4.
Right.
That's a
Right.
pretty good value,
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Well, to take the question full circle, where do you think it's going to head in the next 10 years? Because it's obviously changing. I mean, it seems to me that home delivery is going to be a big deal. I think as labor becomes harder and harder, and whether or not that rights itself or continues to become a struggle, home delivery is going to be a big deal. E-commerce is certainly a big deal. We all know that. But where do you think it's going to land in 10 years?
This episode of Todd-versations is brought to you by Vitalis Organic Seeds. Organic seed for organic food. Learn more about their commitment to organic seed production and R&D at usa.vitalisorganic.com.
Prognosticate.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm putting you on the
good
spot
question.
because I know between now and the next 10 years, the Patriots aren't going to win a Super Bowl. So at that point, I'm just trying to get you back to the retail side.
Exactly. I'm going to have plenty to do that. I would say, that's a good question. I would say value add is going to continue to grow. There's no doubt. We're going to see the evolution in packaging continue, the reduction of plastic and alternatives, whether it be compostable or top seal or whatever it may, you may have it. I do, from a retailer's perspective and someone who's been around for a long time, and I spend a lot of time at farmers markets and at farms and touching product and holding product, because the tactile aspect of retail to me is the most exciting. Going into a store, seeing an abundant display. So in many ways, I hope it doesn't get to this place, but I definitely see things becoming more packaged. But as a greengrocer, I have this sort of lament of how things have happened, because I love the freshness and the aspect. So I think Whole Foods will always be in that space, because that's what has driven our program is the freshness and the display, and it's inspiring, and it speaks to freshness and quality.
Right.
But there's going to be aspects of packaging continuing to evolve. So I think it has to be because of the convenience factor. But I would say that supply partners are doing a remarkable job of understanding what the right package is to maintain quality. I think we are always in a place where if it's packaged, it's lesser quality. That's not the case anymore. People are doing a great job with innovation to get the product to be at its right state for the retailer. And I think that will continue to evolve. Like if I look at the UK retail space, everything is packaged. Everything's in its little sort of punnet. Right. And it has identifications, and that's great. But I don't go into a store in general at times and feel inspired about food, particularly in the produce space, because you lose that aesthetic of sorts. It becomes very programmed. So I think there's going to be a balance. So we'll have to see how that evolves over time. I think we'll always have a major component of that, because it does inspire people. It does inspire people to cook and shop fresh as they would in a farmer's market.
Yeah.
Or, a couple of old sort of greengrocer type of approaches. So I think that's important.
I 100% agree with you. And very, very well said. And I think just to lean you back into packaging, you're absolutely right. That's going to have to evolve and change. Packaging, I believe, is a positive cost of food, is provided that we're finding packaging technology that's going to be better for the planet. We can't, what we're putting out there now isn't necessarily in the best interest long-term of, our global stewardship. So I believe that's going to be a real thing that's going to have to get leaned into. But one of the things that I think you guys have always done is that you guys have always been kind of the morals and values leader out there in a lot of ways. And, you're the first certified U.S. national retailer. You spearheaded change for clean label products. You're talking about packaging in the perspective of, it's great. You understand it, but it's not, to your point, it's just not really overly appealing when everything in the world's packaged. Produce is an area in the store that, you can actually physically touch. You can literally go pick your 5 apples. And I think consumers like that. They like that control in the grocery store. And I think that's a really positive thing.
Because everybody has a different palate, Todd.
Yeah.
And hey, my wife likes her pears firmer. I like mine almost overly soft. Some people like their bananas with spots. Some people like them with a touch of green in them.
Yeah.
So it all depends on your palate. So I think there's a reason to have that sort of bulk produce alongside, if you have space, with some packaging, because there's going to be that customer that wants to pick a melon that's going to be ready in a couple of days or ready today.
Right.
But they may want to buy two melons in a bag because that's most convenient for them, and they're going to bring them home and ripen them at their leisure. So it really depends. So it's what you can do and what you can accomplish. And I think you have to understand what you really want to become as a retailer, and what you want to own, and what your aesthetic's going to be, and how that carries throughout the whole store. So
totally. But when I think about you guys, becoming that first certified, retailer, and again, thinking about all the work you guys did, not necessarily in produce, but across the whole store for clean label products. That's a huge responsibility that you guys took on. Talk about a positive cost of food. You guys, stick your neck out a little bit, start driving these conversations forward, knowing that it's, financially is a challenge, right? Because it's a great store. We want the consumer to embrace it, but those brands are, they're not the 99-cent brands, and they shouldn't be, because they're doing things other folks aren't doing. What's that responsibility of that kind of mindset, and that directive? What's it kind of taught you? Because it had to have changed you a little bit. I know you've come up in this culture, and you've always been a part of it. But when you look around what others are doing, you have to have some sense of pride of change that directives taught you.
Yeah, good question, Todd.
I try. There's more good ones, and there's more Patriot, and you're going to get more Patriot crap too.
Exactly. Well, you've come with some good questions. Sometimes you have good questions. Sometimes your question's a little bit questionable, but that's all right too.
Thank you. I'm okay. I'm fine with being just questionable.
To me, and I go back to my early days, particularly at Bread and Circus, is I think it was when you have a store that had core values and mission statements, you own that, and it was our duty to make sure that when someone walked in the door as a customer, that you were supporting the brand from end to end. And that to me was really important. Like if Whole Foods, and for me, if I was a produce clerk or a produce team member or a produce coordinator or director or whatever, it was my responsibility to make sure that what I put out there represented what, not only the brand, but also what was behind the brand, and also what I stood behind, and what was my directive and duty was to make sure that I wanted to make sure that I was giving the customer what I expected, and that was a great experience, great quality, and a sense of satisfaction when they left the store. The last thing that I want to hear, and I believe me, I hear it at times from a neighbor or a friend or a family member, oh, that peach wasn't great. It's like, well, that really bothers me. Like, sure. And that's been part of maybe some of my some anxieties at times, is want to make sure that I'm giving our customer what I expect, and in the experience and the quality and the flavor, and that goes with organics. Someone comes into our store and wants organic, I want to make sure that they get organic, and that was really important to me, that they come in and they get organic. If they come in and want a great tasting peach or a great tasting tomato, I want to make sure that we have that for them. And if we don't, then I'm not going to offer it, Todd. Let's
Right.
be clear. Like, hey, if there's not a good peach out there, then we shouldn't be selling peaches. I don't want to sell somebody a lesser quality peach just to have that peach.
I agree.
That to me that to me does not represent what Whole Foods is about and what I'm about as a retailer. You know,
I love it.
so to me, that kind of, I think, hopefully encapsulates the sort of that question in a lot of ways. Is you got to stand behind what you want to accomplish and what you want to do as a retailer. Is you got to stick behind and stand behind your core values and your mission statement, your
I
principles.
agree. Hey, look, sometimes you make more money on the produce you don't sell than the produce you do sell. And that's exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, how many times have you been with someone that's like, those guys always have really bad peaches. I'm not going to buy peaches from that retailer again. And then that always becomes their thing. Like, that's the bad peach guy. Or every time I go to that store, I buy soft apples. You pick the thing.
No, 100%. You're 100%. You're 100% right. And it sticks because there are folks out there that, put stuff on the shelf because they think they've got to have no matter what it is on the shelf. We know what shipping stuff is like. We know that things are grown nowadays for the outward appearance and to get across country and to go through the supply chain, the whole 9 yards. And they come out with no flavor, or they're watery, they're just this or that. I'm not going to point out it. You know what the commodities are. I think a lot of people that shop retail know what the commodities are, but you're absolutely right. There is some value to be had in having value, right? And I think you summed it up beautifully with what you just said.
And if you don't want that, there's other stores that you can shop in that have that representation, and that's fine too.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing wrong with that. This is just what we do, and this is what I do. And I've never been in a position to say what other people do or don't do. I'm responsible for me and for my team and for what we do at Whole Foods. And to me, that's most important. I always want to know what somebody else is doing, because let's be clear, I watch every retailer just as much as I watch myself. But I want to make sure that I'm doing what we do, particularly for our customer.
For sure.
And to me, that's the most important thing that I want to make sure that I'm doing with not only our supply partners and making sure that they get that message, because I'm just the conduit, really, to be clear. I'm just bringing the stuff from the supplier to the store. I'm just the facilitator in the middle, helping get it there.
Right.
So to me, that's my responsibility. I'll never forget, Todd, years ago, grandparents, never would buy corn in the early spring, partly because they had bad experiences with it. And being in New England, we don't get corn until August or September, right? So I was like, hey, Grandma, you should try the corn coming out of Florida right now. It's really great. So I was like, Eric, we don't buy corn until it's grown from, this guy down the road. I was like, okay, fair enough. So I just brought some over one day. Speaking of owning something and making sure it's something that the quality is there and it tastes good, and the perception behind things and what we do in different ways. It was really important to sort of prove to my grandmother in some ways that, hey, there's different things out there you should try. And I brought her some corn that was fresh from Florida because it was their summer program. And it was close to home, and the varieties had changed and than they were years ago. And she enjoyed it and changed her perception. And I think those are the kind of things that we continue to prove at Whole Foods, is those types of experiences. So
I think that's so cool. What a great story. What a great story to bring it back around. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Let's shift gears a touch a little bit and talk about ag technology a touch, just because the fact, look, anybody that's an ag startup company, some way, somehow is finding somebody's email inside your company that say, hey, will you buy my stuff? I'm 100% positive of that statement. So tell me a little bit about how, ag technology is kind of coming into this space, whether it be, maybe even how ag technology has changed in your opinion. I mean, it's kind of a broad question, but I'm just more curious as to, how you're perceiving of all this now, because, there's companies being funded and popping up all over the place. I mean, you got guys growing stuff in Oklahoma City you got guys, there's people up in Fairbanks now that are doing stuff. There's people out in the middle of Dubai. It's coming. So tell me a little bit about, that for you.
Well, it's I think what it's done is it's really sort of helped. There's no shortage of it, right? There's ag tech doing this component or that component or that component. To me, the one thing it's done is it's helped on the assurity of supply, right? We've been able, and supply partners have been able to understand all of the inputs more scientifically, to understand how a product, crop, or an item may yield. Now, yield meaning germination to harvest to transportation to retail, right? And I think that in some ways has made us a lot better and smarter to be able to help support the supply needs. How many times have you in the past have we all heard that, oh geez, I just walked by that field and didn't realize it had gone to seed?
Right.
That doesn't really happen anymore because folks are using drones or have technology in place to understand how the crop is heading from the time you plant it to the time it's harvested. And it helps the retailer understand what supply they have to get to market. If I look at the other side of the business, it's been really cool, Todd. To be fair, I mean, it's wonderful to see all this stuff emerge. I mean, going back many years ago, we didn't really have a lot of expansive greenhouses here domestically.
No.
We were flying in tomatoes from Holland because they were the best quality tomatoes at the time.
Right.
And herbs from here and product from here and there. Now, fast forward 20 plus years, it's happening here domestically in our backyards.
Oh yeah.
And it's cool to see. It's cool to see local product close to home, indoors or outdoors. And I think there's a tremendous amount of, obviously and clearly, science and technology that's been implemented to help bring that to market. So really cool. Really cool to see varieties change, inputs change, the overall technology, and understand sort of how product really needs to grow with various spectrums of light and water inputs and so on and so forth, and taking into consideration all the environmental challenges.
Sure.
So it's really cool to see how it is emerging. And bringing product close to home that we never thought could be close to home.
Right.
I mean, particularly here in the Northeast, there's a tremendous amount of, greenhouse growers now that are growing at scale, bringing product to the Northeast. That's really cool.
Every day. Yeah. Well, it's nice
really
to have,
cool.
Yeah. Fresh lettuce in December in Boston. That's
absolutely.
You've never seen that in your carear up until recently.
No. So it's really cool to see. Where it's going, is going to be interesting. I think we're going to have to understand if there's going to be, saturation and in the space and how things work out.
Yeah. Well, I think you got to expect a culling of the herd, right? I mean, I think some of it's just going to be, some of it's hard to scale. Some of them are, but I believe what the important part of what ag tech is they're doing the heavy lifting to make the world a better place downstream as well, right? So it's the hard work, and I hate to say the thinning of the herd. That sounds so kind of flippant to say it, but the fact of the matter is, it's with any industry, you always have some attrition that comes out of this kind of growth, especially as much as going on today. But I think what we're learning and what these guys are doing, you take a look at some of these guys, and I was talking to this with somebody just recently. How many of these guys are actually using this technology and working with being able to produce food in space, right? Because you can't put, if we want to try to go to other planets and do some of the things we talk about, these big dreams, these big goals, and ask, we want to get off this planet for some weird reason. you can't haul all the food within a rocket. We don't have rockets big enough, right? So you're going to have to grow food. So a lot of these guys are, there's guys out there that are doing some pretty crazy stuff. So I agree with you that, I think technology is it's a good thing. Technology is a dangerous thing, but I think when it comes to, we need to be paying attention to it, but I don't think we're going to get away from it. I think we actually, in a lot of ways, need to embrace it, because I think what those learnings are going to be beneficial downstream.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think there is again, if I go back to the surety of supply, I think there is something to that as well. But to me, it also has to be quality. Just because you grow something indoors doesn't mean it's good, at least from my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It also has to taste good. And I think there is a lot of science going into what is flavor as well. So
For sure.
understanding the components of flavor, understand the components of quality, and trying to identify, what items you should grow is extremely important. And
100%.
that's going to be different in every geography and every different situation. And again, every going back to what I said earlier, it may work for some retailers and it may work for others.
Right.
And not sure how that's going to work out.
Agreed.
But, I think, for us, we continue to look at it, we continue to understand it. Again, we've been supporting indoor growing and outdoor growing since the beginning, and
no doubt.
We'll continue to.
Well,
Just gotta figure out what's the right item for us. So
look, I think technology, in my opinion, is real simple, right? It's not an and or an or. I say this all the time. It's an and. But there's a difference between working with Mother Nature and trying to be Mother Nature, and the latter is the one I think we need to be concerned about. Working with Mother Nature, to your point, how much light does it take to make sure your flavor profile stays the same? Those are great learnings, right? Those are some very interesting things that have, can do a lot of really cool stuff. But when you're starting to bend what Mother Nature has put in front of us to craft something that's completely different, that I believe starts to become dangerous. And to me, that's where my line in the sand is. Like, again, work with Mother Nature, don't be Mother Nature.
yeah, and I think it's it's also like, the balance, because then you get folks what's like, well, maybe I shouldn't have lettuce in New England in the winter. And so be it, right? But I think if it's the quality's right and the price can work, then we should see if our customers would appreciate it. And
absolutely.
And that's okay.
I agree.
And
yeah. I want to stay in the. Yeah, cool. Thank you. That's a great answer. I want to stay on the technology thing a little bit. Let's chat a little bit about, Amazon, the new mothership, and what's going on. So, now that you guys are a part of Amazon, how much have you guys kind of influenced some of their thinking? Because, you guys have your own culture, you have your own kind of way you've been doing stuff. They have their own way, and you kind of come together. And how is that, how have you guys influenced them?
Good question. I think
2 for 2, baby.
I should keep track, actually, and I'm not.
Please don't. Don't.
It's been a really good experience. They've been a champion of our quality standards from day one, and never want us to compromise them. And I think that's extremely important. I think it's been a great to have a partner that helps us in our thinking, and challenges us to be better. And I think you can't ask for a better partner in that space.
Right.
So, how we made him better? Well, you could say, or you could, or I could, but depends on your perspective. But I think we're one of the best retailers of food in the country, perhaps the world. So I think we've helped them in a lot of ways by just being the best retailer and having that experience in this space.
Right.
And I think that means a lot, not patting ourselves on the back, but we've worked hard to be that retailer that folks have looked up to. And I think it's been a really good partnership with.
Right. How about from a but from like a cultural standpoint, blending them together?
It's funny you say that, because I think a lot of the cultures are similar. So, our leadership principles are similar, and customer obsession, look at that alone.
Sure.
I mean, and going back to my point earlier, to me, it's all about making sure that the customer has the right experience at Whole Foods Market, and giving them what we expect and what they expect, and it's quality, and it's no different with Amazon. The customer is the most important, and I think that resonates with both of us.
I love that. Thank you for that. But I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there in relation to Amazon and this acquisition, this and that. So some of those, I mean, you hear them. I mean, people have come to, you read them in the news, whether people ask you the question, whatever the case is. What do you think some of the biggest misconceptions are that people just don't get about the fact that Amazon is, they've got clean label products on their site. They highlight clean label products. They work with people to promote clean label products on Amazon's, site, et cetera. Is there anything of those negative beliefs out there that need to be set right, you think, or
I don't know.
Am I sending you down a dark, slippery slope?
No, Todd, I've been around a long time. I've answered this question and had this question asked me, I can't even tell you how many times.
Oh, I love it.
Going back to the bread and circus days. Well, ever since Whole Foods bought bread and circus, things weren't what they were. Ever since Fresh Fields got bought out by Whole Foods, things weren't what they were. Ever since Whole Foods bought Wild Oats, the stores aren't the same. I've been hearing it for now 30 years.
Right.
Every time I've heard it, my answer is always the same. Well, we've become better. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to answer that question.
You just did.
It's the same answer every time.
Yeah,
We've become better. We've become better. When we went from 5 stores to 20 during the acquisition of Whole Foods, or whatever the count was, we became better. Our reach and the quality that we've offered our customer, with now 530 stores, is remarkable. So my answer is always the same. We've become better.
And thank you for saying it, because I know that it's out there. And there's actually some of the feedback I got from people. We were talking a little bit, and it's like, well, what is all? It's like, they continue to grow. But you're absolutely right. I remember, I can go back to the days when Mrs. Gooch's was bought. I go back to the days when all of this happened. And from the supply side, the supplier's like, oh my God, everything's going to change. But with change comes success. With change does come opportunity,
Hey, I'm still here, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
that says something.
Yeah. I'm still inspired. I still want to bring our customers great quality product, and work with our supply partners to make sure that they have that experience. So again, my answer is the same.
I love it. Great. I love it. Let's shift gears a little bit, because we know we're dealing with some stuff right now. We're dealing with labor. We're dealing with trucking problems. We're dealing with supply problems. We have, there's 100 ships off the coast here in California that can't get offloaded, et cetera. So what's something right now, and you guys, and you're sitting around in your meetings every week, that we should be worried about from both the supply and a kind of a retail perspective?
Interesting. It's going to be hard to see this catch up, right? With all these different challenges. And we're all facing it in one situation or another, whether it be your local coffee shop that's closed, or has abbreviated hours, or you've been waiting for a new car for 6 months, whatever it might be. So there's always going to be challenges, Todd. I think it's how you navigate through them, and how you represent your company and your brand in these circumstances. Okay, right. It's like, you be honest, you be in front of it, and you say, hey, I'm sorry that we may be experiencing this or experiencing that. Alternatively, here's a solution. And you just be honest with each other about how to navigate through it. But I don't think this is just one issue that we're confronted with today. There's going to be something else tomorrow and the next day, and how we navigate through that's going to be going to be how you are successful, to be honest.
Right.
So, it's coming up with alternatives, I think being savvy and being able to course correct really quickly. I think, if blueberries are stuck on the water in LA, because there's a log jam on the ports because of all the various issues, then what are you alternatively going to sell to make sure your customer has the right experience? And you're going to have to course correct. And if they're also dealing with, quality challenges, and you have a supply partner relationship that is important, that has product on the water that's been sitting there, well, how do you help them out too? So you have to look at it from both angles. Like, okay, well, this person has brought fruit in on our behalf. How can you make it work for them, and come up with some solutions to help them navigate through this challenge as well? Because to me, it's not just about looking at the problem that we're facing, but it's also looking at the problem that other people are facing too, to help them navigate through the challenges. Because let's be clear, if if we don't have supply partners to help support us, then we can't be Whole Foods Market.
Absolutely.
So it's important to make sure that we take care of our supply partners from end to end and through these challenges. So
I love it. And God, you just set me up for my next question, because what I wanted to ask you or get into next is talking about, what I said earlier when we started is about how much you have uplifted so many brands. And as a young brand is out there today trying to find their runway and trying to get their feet, and to grow and to bring more food into the supply chain, what advice would you give a brand right now when they're getting ready to try to enter the retail space?
Yeah, I think it's really comes down to, what do you want to be?
Great question. Great answer.
Like, we've got stuff presented all the time, and it's like, well, that's just what we already have. That is it the same, or is it different, or is it better? I think you just have to understand what you want to do and what you want to be.
I love that. It's a great answer.
So I don't. That's
a great answer. I mean, you're absolutely right. You got to have that course that you want to be on. Coming in, with an identical to my Sharpie, saying I've got a Sharpie, just like that Sharpie. It's not called Sharpie, but it's got a different name. I mean, at the end of the day, how many do you need?
I already got a Sharpie. Yeah, give me
exactly. Yeah, give me something. Yeah, give me some. So I'm going to stay on that a little bit, because I think this is great. I think this is a great lesson for some of these young brands. So inside of Whole Foods, how does the buy side kind of influence your merchandising side?
Well, it's everything. To me, it's all one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to work in concert with one another to make it work. If it doesn't work at retail, then we have to give our supply partners that input to change their way that they're doing something. And conversely, I want to hear from a grower or a broker or a wholesaler about what they're maybe seeing that maybe we're not doing. So to me, it's a two-way street, but it's a partnership, and it's all in the same. So what I mean by that is that it's always connected. So
Right.
So what you may see today in grapes in Bakersfield, we're going to see it retail in 2 or 3 weeks, right?
Right.
So how do you understand how to react and influence that at retail? Okay, well, it's been it was really windy in Bakersfield, right? Did you guys have a tremendous windstorm the last couple of days?
Big time.
So okay, so what does that mean at retail? What do we need to do there to help support that at retail? And then conversely, hey, 3 weeks from now, I'm seeing this condition on grapes because it's been so windy, or was so windy 3 weeks ago. What can we do to give and close that loop and provide that feedback back to the grower and say, hey guys, here's how what you saw is now influencing us at retail, and what we've needed to do to retail grapes in this space. We've had to shrink displays.
Right.
We've had to We've had to call the packs a little bit differently because we're seeing some condition challenges that we didn't experience. So, but again, it's really the connection between the two. We have to honestly be the prognosticators of sorts to understand that, okay, well, it was really hot in the West Coast during this window. Having that relationship with the supply partners to understand what they're experiencing, then course correct in advance at retail to make sure that we're in a position and to support the assurity of supply. So
Absolutely.
So it's a connection there because it's all the same. If we don't alter our store's merchandising schematics to the season or to the search situation, then we're gonna over challenge or overtax the system in many ways that shouldn't be. But then conversely, if there's a run on something, we need to also be nimble enough and course correct to help absorb some of that supply to help support retail if that's something we want to do. So
Absolutely.
To me, it's you could look at it as wholesale and retail. To me, it's the same. It's a connection and it's one team and it's one program. Everyone just got different jobs, right?
Right.
Supporting each other to help support the process. But ultimately, it's one thing. It's one connection. So
right. Well, and being the fact that you're a national chain, you got stores all over the place. It's a tough thing to manage. It's a tough thing to herd those cats when you're trying to figure out what am I going to do with this? Is this product good enough to only go this far? Is this product good enough to go that far? And is there a better product to move here? I mean, it's a Ouija board every day, I would imagine, with your team. Now, that's got to be something that takes a little bit of time to learn to manage as well, is that mechanism that's in place. And I think you described it really, really well. Thanks for sharing that. I think it's just important for young brands that are listening to this kind of get a perspective of, like, again, just don't be that Sharpie, right? And what it's going to take and what the thought process is. One of the things I think that you guys do so very well and have always done is, again, go back to what I said earlier about you guys wear your morals and values on your sleeve. You guys are raising the bar constantly out there, which is always a challenge, right? You always put a target on your back when you start to raise the bar. People find a lot of times you see people, when you raise the bar, people go south because they can get cheaper. They see that kind of pivot. I've seen that over the time in my career. But how do you guys balance like some of these corporate goals, whether it be like fair trade and local and private label, because you guys support a lot of really great things, and that's got to be tough for you guys to manage. How do you guys do that?
This episode of Todd-versations is brought to you by Vitalis Organic Seeds, organic seed for organic food. Learn more about their commitment to organic seed production and R&D at usa.vitalisorganic.com.
Yeah, it is tough. I think, all those, to me, all those things really help support quality. And
good answer there.
And that's our goal, is to support quality.
Sure.
And that's quality of product and quality of life and quality of the planet. So how there's lots of initiatives, right? And no shortage of them. But to me, they all are important in their own right, but collectively they help support the mission of quality. And to me, that's most important. I do want to mention one thing back to the original point, though. The BuySide and influencing things is, in particularly to the brands, particularly with new folks and brands, is to just make sure you listen.
Take the advice.
Take the advice. Listen to the retailer. And don't just listen to me or my perspective. Listen to everyone's perspective, because everyone's going to have an angle or input that's really important to help influence you and what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish in this space. Because hey, the product may not work for us, but it may work for somebody else, and that's okay. As long as that's important to you.
Right.
So just listening is really important. But back to your question on the balance, Again, it supports quality, Todd. I think that's really important. And if it helps improve quality in all the various aspects of quality, then it's something that we need to manage. And it's hard to manage it all. Don't,
Oh, 100%.
there's a lot there. So, I mean, pick the certification. There's a lot there. And I think we do a good job with managing them all as best we possibly can. So
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it goes back to where I was kind of threw that question up because it's taking me down a little bit of trail about consumer education. I mean, I think we both would agree that consumer education is extremely important. And I think you guys have done a good job of that. You walk into your, health and beauty and vitamin section, whatever the case may be in the store. And boy, your people are, they're Johnny on the spot. They know a heck of a lot and you get great advice. They're great to talk to. And that's super important. I mean, that's what, you walk into something and don't know, you walk in to look at a jackfruit and have no idea what it is other than this big massive thing. It's good to have somebody kind of highlight and tell you that. So consumer education, I think you probably would agree, and I'm not going to draw a question out of it, is probably pretty important. And certainly some heavy lifting that a retailer should always continue to do. And trust is another thing I think that's really important. And I think that's something that you guys have created with your consumers. When I think about consumer education, the trust is an important thing. And you guys have established that kind of in that, having that relationship with the customers. So that kind of weird question I kind of threw out leads me to this one is like, how do you let them know that you guys are still out there doing all this heavy lifting for them? Because that's really what the consumer wants, right? They want you to do the heavy lifting. They want to walk in and have all the confidence in the world that every choice inside your store is the right choice. So how do you continue to let them know you're still doing that today?
Yeah, I think it's it's with some of the brands that we're doing. The Source for Good brand, I think that we did, which was a relaunch or a rebranding of our whole trade program, was important. Doing the work to understand what's out there from a standpoint and sort of supporting it, and continuing to just be the leader in that space.
Right.
It's important to make sure that you're continuing to evolve and supporting all the various folks. But I think we've always had the responsibility of doing the heavy lifting, whether it be going back from our quality standards, and not wavering from that. That takes a lot of work, Todd. And I think folks probably don't know how much it does take, but it takes a lot.
It's a lot of heavy lifting.
A lot of heavy lifting. We have some new teams that have been created at Whole Foods Market to continue to support that, because to me it supports our brand, and we won't waver from our quality standards in our ingredient list, and anything else that may be coming up that we don't know yet. So, I think rest assured we're going to do our due diligence to understand what may be happening or what's emerged, and understand if it fits within Whole Foods Market to support our brand and support our quality. So,
love it. It's a great answer. No, it's a great answer, and I think it's just, again, it's so important. I think that, again, the consumers don't have a lot of time, and they look for our retailers. They look for the shopping experience to tell them why and what's important, whether it be food, whether it be consumer electronics, whatever the case may be. I think it's just really important. But I commend you guys for doing that and for doing the heavy lifting, because you have raised the bar. You have made retail better.
And we got. I mean, not just me and my team, but as a whole, the team members of Whole Foods Market really care. And are doing the due diligence to understand if the product or the programs or the things that we're supporting make a difference. And that's really important.
Absolutely. Okay, just what's kind of bringing this around full circle? What are some of the trends that are out there today that you think are, we should be watching, whether it's, microgreens, whether it's new sustainable seafood, whether it's, whatever the case may be? Is there something out there that kind of has you in the corner of your eye kind of always looking at these days?
There's always something. I mean, it's like even just looking at trying to find beer these days. Like, buying beer these days is a whole different experience than maybe when you and I were kids buying beer.
Well, we just bought beer that was cheap.
Yeah. Now it's like, well, now I want local beer, but how local do I really want it? Because I have
Right.
now a whole choice. It's a good topic. I think, there is indoor, which is, obviously a big trend,
Right.
and how that's happening. I think there's a whole level of wonderful local programs that I think are really, really great that we need to continue to watch, and the locally grown product that is.
Right.
And I think also, the sort of ready to eat salads, and also the chopped salad space is pretty fantastic. So those are trends to really watch. And I think there's going to be you've seen the startups and the various home delivery meal kit solution programs
Sure.
sort of come and go. But I think that some of those may have been a sort of a casualty of sort of the situation we're in now, with COVID. But you do think that someone's really going to figure that out in a large way, and there's going to be some really fantastic meal kits that are going to emerge. I mean, if you look at it, one of the things about COVID that was interesting was how many people still wanted to have that in-home restaurant experience, right?
Right.
So restaurants, and at any scale, right, figured out how to do home delivery or pickup and have that similar experience from their local folks. So you wonder if that's going to continue at a larger scale. And it probably is. Takeout and delivery and so on and so forth. I think people want to continue to watch that.
Yeah, I agree.
But there's no shortage of trends right now.
No, there's not.
So
Whether
I think it's how do you support it, and how do you embrace it, and at what point do you actually do you support it? I mean, do you support it early on? Do you let it run its course a little bit? Have some successes and failures, and then do you bring it in?
Right.
How long do you support it for before it becomes
Waste of space.
Waste of space and no longer a trend? It's hard to say.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's a lot of things coming, whether it's seaweed, seaweed's a big one now that's starting to get a buzz. I think, trying to get standards around, fish to be organic, especially farm raised fish, things like this. I mean, there's some really cool things that I think they're coming. Just a sidebar question I want to throw at you. I mean, with the announcement that John Mackey's leaving after, an amazing tenure and an amazing set of vision, I've had the pleasure of chatting and hanging out with him a touch, and he's an interesting cat, to say the least. He's a cool dude. How's everybody feeling about John leaving? I'm sure it's probably like everybody kind of felt it might be coming eventually, but now that it's a little bit real, it's got to be a little surreal in some ways, I would think.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone is experiencing a little bit differently. He obviously is been around, the beginning. I mean, he started Whole Foods, so I mean, it's going to be interesting. John's fantastic. He's got this wonderful connection with people and our team members, and been supporting our team members since the beginning. So that'll be some shoes to fill for sure. But we have a really good team in Whole Foods now to support that as well. But
right.
he'll always be around, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure.
So and I look at like him, and then look at like ACs, two guys that are trendsetters, and folks that have really created this environment at Whole Foods that, again, is second to none. Whether it be the product we sell, the quality we sell, and the team members that we support. I mean, it's it's something that's really unique. So
Absolutely, 100%. Oh, thank you for sharing that. I didn't mean to put you on the spot on that, but it's obviously big news to the deal.
yeah, it's
Let's
great.
shift gears a little bit with you and just ask you a couple other just oddball questions. Stay on this track. I've known you for a long time. You're an inspiring guy. You're fun to be around. You've got a great vision. You get this game. You know how to play it very well. Who or what inspires you out there today? When you think about something to get you fired up, who's in the world inspires you besides me? I mean, obviously,
besides you, that's hard to say.
Well, just stop right there. I'll just cut that clip and I'll own it. I'll put that on a t-shirt.
The number 2 person I would probably go with, there's a lot of people that I look up to, in my family, a lot of people that I've worked with over time. To me, I had the pleasure of working with a lot of wonderful people, you included.
Appreciate that.
For a long time, and it's helped inspire me and helped shape me as a leader. And I've always been in a place where, like, well, okay, now I've been afforded all this wonderful mentorship and experience over time. How can I give back? So the list of people that have helped inspire me is long, and I can't say it's just one person in particular.
That's good though.
But there's a whole host of people, the one thing that I've always thought that I've done well is at least listened. And I think there's a lot of people who have had wonderful vision and experience and things to share. And I've just been the benefactor and recipient, and a good listener, to be honest, and helped listen to what people are saying, and then brought them on to my vision, to help support and then give back to the people who also are listening, because it's not I want to make sure that I'm doing my part, as my mentors and folks that inspired me, to then in turn give them that same experience. So I think that's been really important.
That's the key to mentoring, man, is give back, right? The key to mentoring is to give back. And it's so funny when you think about mentoring, I think people think that you've got to be the 85-year-old guy talking to the 21-year-old guy, but there's just as much benefit being the 21-year-old guy teaching the 85-year-old guy something too, right? And mentoring is that two-way street. So I appreciate your answer.
I mean, even to this day, Todd, like if I, going back to how you talked about connecting retail and the buy, right? Or I forget what the question was, but if I want to see something and want an answer, what do? I go to the store. Yeah. Like, especially if it's a problem at Whole Foods, I'll go to a store and I'll talk to the produce team member in the store. It's like, hey, how's this stuff look? And that opens up a whole host of questions that I never even thought that there would be, that I needed. So it's like, okay, let's go. Hey, the strawberries are running a little rough today. Oh, let me go run down to the store and talk to the team member, or the team leader in the store, open up some strawberries, go look in the cooler, look at the pallet of strawberries, and you start going down this rabbit hole. And then I get on the phone, or have an experience with somebody, or I go look at, it's been hot, right? I go look at broccoli in the store. Broccoli looks a little challenged. And then, so I go talk to the team leader and talk to the team member, and they say, well, hey, normally the broccoli comes in, looks like this. It's this time of year. I get it. Let's go take a look at the product in the back room and see what's happening. And then we call a bunch of folks and understand that we probably should have done this differently. But to me, it's like, I want to get right to the problem and try to help support the process. And it's, again, listening to the people in the store, listening to the people that are experienced in that spot at that time, that can help support the situation. So
I love it. Oh, great answer, dude. That's a great answer. All right, let's have a little fun. You ready to have a little fun? You ready to play a little trivia, a little TLC trivia? Go for it. Look at him step up like a big swinger right now. He has no idea what's coming. You don't know what's coming. All right, here we go. This isn't too hard. I got you some good ones. I got some good ones. All right. Okay. So first one, what traditional Christmas plant is actually a parasitic plant? Yeah, I knew this. I'm just opening you up right now with a huge volley. You're going to go 0 for 1. I can feel it coming. Parasitic plant.
Cranberry.
No. Mistletoe.
Mistletoe. Okay.
Yeah, it can support its own life through photosynthesis on the host that it lives. And it's not only parasitic, but it's also poisonous to both humans and animals, which I didn't know that part. So I don't know why I really don't understand why we stand under and kiss each other, because it seems like that's kind of goes against the whole premise. If the plant you're underneath is parasitic and can hurt you.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's that say about who you're kissing? I don't even know. I'm not even going to go there.
Exactly.
All right, here we go. What was your nickname growing up?
My nickname growing up.
Yeah.
Well, considering my last name is Brown, it more often than not was Brownie. So
Super boring.
boring.
Super boring. I had higher expectations out of that. I don't know why, but I did not expect to see that going. I didn't see that one. So dead or alive, who would you like to go to dinner with?
Dead or alive, who would I go to dinner with? Good question.
Again, here I go with them.
I probably, my wife, my
Good
kids.
answer. Good answer.
That's at this point, it's all about them, and nothing like that I like better than sitting at home having dinner with the family.
I can't. That's a hell of a good answer. I couldn't disagree with you there. I couldn't disagree with you there, especially your kids are still home, mine are gone. So when you get that opportunity,
there's a whole host of a whole host of like influential people that I could probably come up with as sports guys and
But your answer's real.
Yeah,
I love it.
That's easy.
So here we go. Final question. Just throwing it out there to you. Now I know you're a huge Boston sports fan. I picked on you already, right? I mean, I know I text you and we go back and forth a little bit, but truthfully, how much do you hate Tom Brady right now that he's in Tampa?
Well, especially after the weekend he had. Hey,
hate's a big word.
It's a big word. Hate's a big word. How can you hate Tom Brady? I mean,
I think there's a lot of people that would probably to answer that question.
I mean, hey, I grew up in Boston when it was really hard to be a Boston sports fan. Outside of the Celtics, we had our long drought with the Red Sox. We didn't have any sort of hope with the Patriots. And, the Bruins are always in there in here and there. So who would have thought, 20 years later, we'd still be talking about Tom Brady tearing up the stat sheet and just killing it in Tampa Bay. I mean, hey, I tell you, talk about somebody who's inspiring. That's something to be inspired by. I mean,
pretty impressive for a guy that was drafted 200 to 212.
Determination. And I mean, they obviously, because he came up here for the Tampa Bay Pats game, so it was all kinds of stuff that they were replaying. And there was one really kind of cool piece on Bob Kraft with him running into Tom at his first day of practice or whatever it was, and something saying like him introducing himself to Mr. Kraft, and I forget how it went, but it was more like, you've made the best decision in your life drafting me, and he never let it down. No. And that in him getting drafted 199th and having the determination is why he's so successful. I mean, the guy just does not give up. Yeah. And whatever he's faced with, he just works his way through it and has been successful. So no doubt, you can't hate the guy. He gave 20 years of his time up here, and we have 6 championships, which is unbelievable.
It is pretty impressive. Now, do you have a Bucks jersey? Let's be honest. Do you have a Bucks jersey?
I do not have a Bucks jersey.
That's just you've drawn the line.
I am very careful of what I do buy from a sports memorabilia standpoint. I have very little. I have tons of hats and T-shirts, of course, but I'm not one of those folks to go out there and buy the latest, greatest jersey. I think I have one official jersey in my closet and that's of Pedro Martinez, because he to me epitomized that generation of Red Sox, and just was so dominant,
So
and
gritty.
so inspiring. It was just unbelievable. So I'll be proud to wear that jersey whenever I break it out, and if I'm lucky enough to get to go to a game in the postseason. So,
And I just don't, just to quote him, do a little movie quote, that the Tampa Bay color is just not everybody's color wheel either. Let's be honest.
Exactly.
Erik, you have been fantastic with your time. You've been so open, so honest, so you've just been so transparent with your answers and talking to everybody and giving a lot of advice to people, quite frankly. And I appreciate you, hanging out with me today on this platform and sharing and catching up. It's, you're one of my favorite people. I've always enjoyed your company, and just, the way you think is just, I wish more people thought like you did. I think the world would be a better place, especially in the retail sector. But I got one final question I want to throw at you, and it's, you've had an amazing journey, right? In your 30-year career. You have really, truly, in a lot of ways, have helped shape today's food world. I mean, you've been responsible for that. You've helped a lot of farmers. You've helped a lot of folks improve their lives because of what you've done and everything else. And for that, I appreciate you. And I show a lot of people do as well. So my final question to you is, if you could just change only one thing in retail, what would it be? That was a really good question.
Retail food or retail?
Yeah, just retailing, just when retailing itself.
Retailing. Could change one thing.
Yeah. Good question. Stump me.
That's a stumper. Change one thing. I mean, I never thought I'd be sitting here 30 years later, Todd, talking to you, and which I love doing. But I think if I could change one thing, I would think that you could hopefully help people believe that retail can be a fun job, and a fun, good job.
That's a good answer.
I've had fun doing it for 30 years. It's been a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I would think anybody who is working at retail and has worked at retail as long as I have, it's a lot of work, but work is okay. I have fun at work.
Yeah.
Work is hard. That's why I call it work.
Yeah, for sure. What a great answer. No, that's a great answer. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, it could be a career. It all depends on what you want to make of it too. I mean, I never thought I'd be sitting here 30 years later, again at Whole Foods. I'm proud to be.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be. If I reflect back, it was a part-time job on the weekend when I was at school. So
right now, look at it.
Yeah,
I love it. Erik, I thank you from the bottom of my heart hanging out, man. I just think people
always.
are going to get a lot out of it. I really appreciate you.
Oh,
I can't wait to see you. Be nice to hang out. I'm ready.
Soon enough. Whenever we'll meet up at some point soon. I'm not sure when. We usually see each other at the airport or some convention.
Usually we find each other somewhere in this planet, mostly text messages these days, but nonetheless.
Exactly.
Well, thank you again for coming on. Thank you for being a part of the Todd-versations. I know that your groupies out there are going to look forward to this one. And you have groupies. I want you to know you have a fan. You literally almost could be almost K-pop-ish in a lot of ways. I'm just letting you know. If you started a boy band, you'd be a complete full circle.
That's funny.
I'm just saying. Thank you, brother, very much. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good week. Go Sox.
I will go. There you go. Thanks everybody for watching. We appreciate you being here. And Erik Brown, everybody. Gotta love it. Thanks, everybody. Be good. Remember, go inspire somebody. It's really important. It's not hard to do. Take care. See ya.
All right, dude. Bye.